Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Raven Maureen, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 10 sewing tips for beginners. I am so excited to share this with you guys. I had to go back and look. I've never shared this type of content before where I'm sharing 10 tips for beginners. So I had to do a little bit of research, and I don't even want to say soul searching. I had to think back to when I was a beginner and certain steps and measures that I took in order to be successful and to be where I am today. So let's go ahead and get into this list. All right, so at the very top of my list, number 10, you do not need the latest and greatest machine to do and make magic. I promise you, my first machine that I purchased was a limited edition Project Runway brother sewing machine, and I actually still own that machine, and I have made probably some of my very best and also very challenging garments on this specific machine. So I say all that to say that it's not always the machine, it's the person who's driving it. Now, I know that the next question may be coming up, well, what sort of machine do you suggest? And I can talk about that in another video. But I will say that it all comes down to your budget and what you're willing to spend. Now, if you are looking for something that is computerized and under $300, a brother machine or even the heavy duty Singer sewing machine are probably the best two options for you. Next up, number 9, find your community. There are so many communities out here in the sewing world. The sewing world is so big and there's a lot of support. There is the Simplicity Creative Group, which is on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. So you have to have a Facebook to join it. There is also Black Sewing Network, which is, I believe they have accounts on TikTok and Instagram, and they may actually have one on YouTube as well. I highly recommend you check them out because they have tons of sew-alongs for tons of different patterns. There is also Sew It Academy, which is an online sewing course. So Mimi G started her Sew It Academy years ago, but this is kind of like continuing education because not only can you learn how to sew, but there's patterns for advanced sewers as well. And there's also men courses in there too. So there's a plethora of resources when it comes to Sew It Academy and just learning. And I believe that it is $11.97 a month. And also join the Instagram community, join the sewing Instagram community, get to know your people, engage in conversation, and just talk to other people that are learning just like you. So this one might be a little provocative, and that is don't test patterns. And I know that it seems like maybe that's a counterproductive argument, but if you see a pattern test call, I'm going to err on the side of don't do it. And the reason being is that a lot of times when it comes to pattern testing, there are a lot of advanced skill levels that you may need to have. So that could come down to fitting, understanding what adjustments you may need for your body. And also not to mention that sometimes patterns need additional work behind the pattern test call. And so if it's not a 100% finished product, you could run the gamut of honestly having ill feelings towards the pattern or even the pattern company. And you definitely don't want to have those feelings as a new person. You can feel overwhelmed in the process as well. There's deadlines, there's feedback that they want to provide or that they want provided back to them. So in my opinion, I would say while it is so tempting to test a pattern and try your new skills and drive that train, it can be discouraging. I'll be very honest with you. Number 7, go to the fabric store. Touch everything, feel it, feel the weight, feel how it may perform in your hands. See what the weave looks like. Also, fabric stores are not just for fabric. There are notions in there. There's different thread, there's patterns. There's so many things in a fabric store that you may not even realize are there. If you've never been inside of a Joann fabric store, you may just think, oh, it's just fabric and maybe some decorations. But as you bob and weave in and out of those aisles, you're going to realize there's different notions for ironing, there's different notions for measuring, there's different notions for your sewing machine. There's actual sewing machines in there. There's so many different tools. And so I encourage anyone who's new to sewing, just walk up and down those aisles and kind of just take it all in. You may not know what everything is for. You may not even know how to use it, or you may not even be interested in it. But if you get your eyes on it, if you pick it up, if you see it, it'll help you understand certain things along your sewing journey. Start identifying patterns that are easy to sew. And the quickest way to do this is to look for anything that doesn't have any closures, anything that includes an elastic waistband or elastic anything. The other one I would say is that if it's a looser fitting garment, then you may not have to like really play with fit or try to master those advanced skills in fitting. So I would say, like, if you have something that's a little bit more blousey and it doesn't include any darts and it's got elastic on it, this is probably the pattern you need to go to. I would also avoid pants. Pants can be challenging. Not just for closure purposes, but also fit purposes. And so if you may need a full seat adjustment or a full tummy adjustment, or if you see drag lines in a certain place, that could indicate fit issues. And those certain things actually may hinder you from working on another project or touching another pair of pants. So I recommend that you stick with maybe skirts and dresses, and of course loose flowy garments, before you get truly comfortable in trying pants. Now, that's not to say that you can't try it. If you're feeling ambitious and confident, definitely go for it. I would say in the same breath, like, if you feel like you are up for doing a zipper, if you're up for making carriers and adding pockets and things like that, please, by all means, go ahead and go for it. But if you are super new, super green, I would try to stick to the easy to sew patterns, jiffy patterns, learn to sew patterns that don't have a lot of pattern pieces. That's always a challenge if there's a lot of pattern pieces. So there are identifiers on pattern envelopes that will help you know if something is within your wheelhouse and within your range. And I do have a few videos that outline some of the best patterns for beginner sewists as well. And the good thing is that I've tried, if not all of them, most of them. So you know that expression, Rome wasn't built in a day? That's the same thing with growing your sewing space. So for number 5, grow your sewing space organically. This entire room was not built in a day, and having sewing space is a privilege and a luxury. I didn't always have this. When I lived by myself in my 1-bedroom apartment, I had a teeny tiny desk and a bookshelf with fabric. Now I have a closet full of fabric that is quite honestly a little hard to keep up with. And I have an entire room for my sewing space. But this didn't happen overnight. These things are collected and it has grown into so much more. And of course, I'm thankful for this. But again, it is a privilege to have this space. And so if you have the space already to turn sewing into a major hobby for you, that's half the battle. But if you are just kind of working with a dining table, which is absolutely normal and totally fine. If you're working with a dining space or anything like that, definitely start looking at storage solutions to kind of keep things together and keep them tidy. Because remember, Rome was not built in a day. Number 4. So remember when I was talking about going to the fabric store and feeling and touching fabrics? I'm going to like dovetail off of that a little bit and say that probably the easiest type of fabric to work with is woven fabrics. And I say that because they are just probably the easiest to iron, the easiest to handle, the most durable to handle. Laundering them is not that hard. You can also find really great colors and prints in those, and so it can kind of get you excited for a new project. But this is usually the go-to fabric to start out with, like a quilting woven even, or a poplin. You can even work with linen, but you have to be careful with the wrinkles in linen and whatnot. Rayon challis is also good, but rayon challis can be very, I call it swimmy. And so you kind of want to make sure that you have a nice flat surface to cut those pattern pieces with and whatnot. But I say all that to say that that definitely try woven. I would say knits is easy once you get the hang of it, but you kind of have to have the right feet, the right tools, the right needles in order to get into knits like that. Without the proper tools for working with knits, you can run into jamming your machine, breaking a needle, or just really just being turned off from knit fabric. I know a lot of sewists who just absolutely refuse or don't like to work with knit fabrics because of their initial experience with it. So this is one you kind of have to ease into and kind of learn how to work with knit fabrics before getting into it, even though typically knit fabric patterns are specifically easier. I would say that if you want to dip your toe in knit fabrics, definitely try like a sweatshirt fleece, which is actually a name for knit fabric, a type of knit fabric, sweatshirt fleece. And that to me is like a stable knit or like a Ponte knit. Those are your more stable knits, and those are honestly the easier ones. So this is also a very provocative thought. Number 3, I'm going to tell you to cut your nice fabric. And let's follow that up with make a mistake and cut your nice fabric. And the reason why I say that, you guys, is because if you make a mistake with your nice fabric, I guarantee you will not make that mistake again. And it'll be the biggest learning experience for you. Have I cut my nice fabric and been like, oh, I'm never doing that again? Yeah, guilty. But it made me a better sewer. It made me more mindful to practice before I cut into my nice fabric. It made me more mindful of any sort of directional lines that were in the nice fabric. And it also made me really consider like doing more research about fabric that I'm not familiar with. So I say all that to say, if you have some nice fabric and you just want to give it a shot, go ahead and cut into it. Let me know what happens. Number 2, start a sewing journal. And this doesn't have to be online at all. You can literally start one in a planner or in a sketchbook or just a mood board in your house. I encourage you to kind of take pictures, see your progress, and see what you were first comfortable with and all the way down to what you are now comfortable with, and see your growth and really look at it. I mean, there's times that I go on my Instagram and I'll scroll all the way down and I'm like, man, I've come a long way. And so eventually with sewing and getting those sea legs and becoming more comfortable with projects, your style, your personality, everything that you've wanted to accomplish with fabric is really going to start coming to life. And so I'm excited for you if you're watching this video and you're new to sewing and you're just trying to really just understand where to get started. I really encourage you to start a sewing journal and to start taking those pictures just to see the progress. Like, just try it. Number 1, my number 1 sewing tip: learn how to read patterns and learn the symbols. I say this because it's going to help you so much. You know, to put the thing with the thing, that's nothing. But if you say, hey, I'm having trouble attaching the arm side to the bodice, anyone who's looking at that or is reading that comment in any sort of community group that you're in, they're going to be able to help you right away. Also too, like, understanding pattern symbols is going to help you see that patterns are literally puzzles or roadmaps. So if you are someone who likes puzzles and you like to have like a little roadmap, this is your in right here, because the dots, the notches, all these little symbols mean little things. And when you start to realize that it's really just one big roadmap to success, you're going to be excited about it. And if you don't know what something is, look it up. I'll never forget, I was trying to figure out what interfacing was. This was like years ago. I was super young. And yes, I had taken a clothing design course, but that was back in high school. And yes, I had heard the term interfacing. But if you know anything about my origin story, you know that I was a C student in my sewing class in high school. So interfacing, I was like, what's that? Like, I've heard the name, but what is that? And so I actually went to Google, looked it up, found out what interfacing was, and I was like, oh, I guess I need this, huh? But I say all that to say that if you're not sure what something is, look it up and definitely pay attention to, again, the symbols, understanding how to read patterns, and just understanding the names of certain pattern pieces. Like this is called the bodice, this is called the arm sleeve. You have a center back, you have a center front, you have a shoulder seam, you have side seams, you have so many different things. You have bias tape, bias finishes. So definitely start learning those words. And I'm not saying like go into like a word salad and just start picking words out and trying to figure out what they mean, but you'll start to recognize the terms more and more as you start to work with patterns. And if you pick out a pattern and it says easy to sew and you're not sure what bias tape is, look it up. It'll go a long way. All right, you guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're not following me already, you can follow me at Raven Maureen on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. By the way, if you want me to expound on any of these subjects that I talked about today, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. See you guys next time. Bye.